The rust bucket's arrival. The crystalline spires of Novaris pierced the violet sky like luminous daggers, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Against this backdrop of architectural perfection, the Starweaver looked particularly pathetic. The human vessel's patchwork hull and jury-rigged systems made it seem more like a floating junkyard than a spaceship. Status report, Core. Unveils commanded, her fingers dancing across the worn control panel. The holographic displays flickered erratically, casting her sharp features in alternating shadows of blue and green. Primary systems at 43% efficiency. Hull integrity questionable. Probability of successful docking authorization, approximately 2.7%. The ship's AI responded, its voice carrying an unusual mix of sarcasm and concern, a quirk from its salvaged military programming. Rena pushed a lock of silver-streaked black hair from her face, studying the approaching checkpoint. Only 2.7%. You're getting optimistic in your old age. I prefer to think of it as statistical generosity, Core replied. Novaris hasn't allowed an unaugmented human vessel to dock in over 3 cycles. Their technological standards are somewhat higher than our current state. The understatement would have been funny if it weren't so painfully accurate. The Starweaver was a Frankenstein's monster of parts, scavenged from a dozen different shipyards across the galaxy. Its reactor core came from an abandoned mining vessel. The navigation system was cobbled together from 3 different species tech. Even core itself was a blend of human and alien code, retrieved from a derelict warship and modified to run the Starweaver's unconventional systems. But that improvised nature was exactly why Rena had been hired for this job. The message had come through back channels, offering more credits than she'd seen in a year. Get to Novaris, make contact with a specific individual, and retrieve a package. The catch. The client insisted she use her own ship, not one of the city's approved vessels. Now, approaching the checkpoint, Rena understood why. Novaris scanning systems were legendary, capable of detecting the smallest quantum fluctuation. A standard ship would be an open book to them. The Starweaver, however, was such a mess of conflicting signatures that it might just confuse the hell out of their sensors. Unidentified vessel, a crystalline voice cut through their comms. You have entered restricted airspace. Your ship does not meet minimum technological requirements for Novaris. Vacate immediately or face decommission. Rena leaned forward, activating the communication array. Novaris Control, this is Captain Unveils of the independent vessel Starweaver. We're here on official business for Merchant Lord Zixtal. Transmission authorization code now. She nodded to Core, who sent the carefully forged credentials they'd paid a small fortune to obtain. There was a long pause, during which Rena held her breath, watching the sleek security drones that circled their position like hungry predators. Authorization code rejected. The voice returned, somehow managing to sound both bored and threatening. Your vessel has been flagged for immediate removal. Power down your engines and prepare for tractor beam engagement. Well, Rena muttered, looks like we're doing this the hard way. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency, bringing the Starweaver's unique systems online. Core, initiate protocol chaos. With pleasure, the AI responded, and suddenly every system on the ship began operating at cross purposes. The engine signature split into 3 different patterns. The hull began emanating radiation on 7 different frequencies. Their identification beacon started broadcasting in 12 different languages simultaneously. The effect on Novaris' automated defense systems was immediate and satisfying. The security drone's precise formation faltered as their targeting systems tried to make sense of the conflicting data. The tractor beam emitters powered up but couldn't establish a lock on the Starweaver's constantly shifting mass signature. Fascinating, Core commented as they pushed through the confusion. Their systems appeared to be experiencing the AI equivalent of a migraine. Rena allowed herself a small smile as she guided the ship deeper into Novaris airways. Sometimes the best way past superior technology is to be so inferior you break their protocols. But their victory was short-lived. A new signal cut through their comms, this one accompanied by the appearance of a sleek, black enforcement vessel rising from the city's depths. The voice that spoke was organic, carrying the multiple harmonic tones of a Novarian elite. "Human vessel," it resonated. "I am Enforcement Commander Vexlor. Your chaotic emissions are disrupting city systems and causing distress to our quantum-sensitive citizens. This violation will not be tolerated." The black ship's weapon ports began to glow with charged energy. Rena's smile turned to a grimace as she realized their simple infiltration had just become significantly more complicated. "Core, what are our options, given our current resources and damage status?" The AI paused. "I calculate our best strategy would be to compose a deeply moving eulogy." Not helpful. Rena's mind raced as she scanned their surroundings. The enforcement vessel was herding them toward one of Novaris' energy collection arrays, massive structures that gathered power from the system's 3 suns. Among the perfectly aligned collectors, the Starweaver's erratic signature would stand out like a supernova. Unless Core, reroute all power to the null field generator. The experimental one we salvaged from the Void Merchant's wreck. Core's tone carried distinct alarm. The one that's never successfully activated without causing a system-wide shutdown. That's the one. Rena, the probability of this succeeding is. That's why they won't expect it. She cut him off, her hands already making the necessary adjustments. Sometimes you have to embrace being the worst to be the best. The Starweaver's systems groaned as power was diverted to the salvage device. Warning lights flashed across every console as the ship's integrity was pushed to its limits. Behind them, Commander Vexler's vessel was charging its main weapon, preparing to disable the troublesome human ship once and for all. Rena waited until the last possible moment, watching the energy build up in the enemy vessel's weapons. Just as the discharge began, she activated the null field generator. For a split second, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to hiccup around the Starweaver. The enforcement vessel's energy beam passed through the space they occupied, but the Starweaver wasn't there to receive it. They had become a quantum ghost, a ship that both existed and didn't exist in the same moment. Impossible. Commander Vexler's voice crackled through their failing comms. "No human vessel possesses this technology." "That's the thing about us humans," Rena replied, though she doubted the transmission went through. "We're really good at finding things others throw away." The null field lasted exactly 37 seconds before the generator burned out completely. But it was enough. The Starweaver rematerialized deep within Novaris' sprawling undercity, hidden among the shadows of the great metropolis foundations. As emergency systems slowly came back online, Core's voice emerged from the darkness of the powered-down bridge. "Well, that was either brilliant or suicidal. I haven't decided which." "Why not both?" Rena checked their position on the backup displays. They were precisely where they needed to be, the infamous gray market, where Novaris' pristine surface met its shadowy underground economy. Now comes the fun part. Fun. Core's tone was dubious. "We're in a partially functioning ship, being hunted by city enforcement, about to make contact with a mysterious client who probably wants to get us killed. Define fun." Rena stood, checking the charge on her salvaged plasma pistol. "We're about to find out exactly what kind of secret is worth all this trouble." And she patted the ship's console affectionately. "We just proved that sometimes the most unworthy vessel can slip through the cracks of a perfect system." Above them, alerts were spreading through Novaris' security network. The hunt was beginning. But down here, in the shadows between perfection and chaos, a human captain and her impossible ship had found their way exactly where they needed to be. The real question was, would they live long enough to complete their mission? Beneath the neon veil, the gray market sprawled through Novaris' lower levels like a tangled web of neon and shadow. Holographic advertisements flickered in dead-end alleys, their ancient projectors casting ghostly images of products long since obsolete. The air was thick with the mingled scents of exotic foods, illegal tech, and desperation. Rena moved through the crowds with practiced ease, her weathered jacket and scarred boots helping her blend in with the market's diverse denizens. The quantum tracker in her pocket pulsed steadily, leading her toward her mysterious client's coordinates. Multiple enforcement scanning sweeps detected above. Core's voice whispered through her neural implant. They're using predictive algorithms to map potential emergence points. Good thing we're not planning to emerge, Rena muttered, ducking under a low-hanging arch of tangled power cables. How's the Starweaver? Conducting emergency repairs using our remaining nanites. Current functionality, 31% and holding. The null field generator is beyond salvation. Rena grimaced. The ship's condition was worse than she'd hoped, but better than she'd feared. We only needed to hold together long enough to... She stopped abruptly. The quantum tracker was going haywire, its display spinning through impossible numbers. Ahead, a hooded figure stood in a doorway, their form seeming to shift and blur at the edges. Greetings, Captain Vale. The figure spoke in harmonics that made Rena's teeth ache. Your reputation for achieving the improbable appears well-earned. My reputation usually comes with a name to address, Rena replied, her hand casually dropping to her plasma pistol. The figure moved forward, and the shadows beneath their hood seemed to deepen. I am Dalvix, formerly of the Quantum Architecture Division. They raised six-fingered hands to lower their hood, revealing a face that seemed to exist in multiple phases at once, a trademark of prolonged exposure to quantum manipulation. Formerly, Rena asked, noting how the crowds gave them a wide berth. Even in the lawless gray market, a quantum architect commanded fear and respect. The division's current direction has become problematic. Dalvix gestured toward a nearby establishment, a dive bar called the Broken Algorithm. Shall we discuss the details somewhere less exposed? Core's voice crackled in Rena's implant. Caution advised. Quantum signatures from this individual are highly unstable. When are they not? Rena muttered, then nodded to Dalvix. Lead the way. But no sudden moves. My trigger finger gets itchy around unstable quantum signatures. The interior of the Broken Algorithm matched its name perfectly. Holographic displays flickered with random sequences of corrupted code, and the patrons, a mix of various species, all shared the haunted look of those who'd seen too much of the quantum realm's mysteries. Dalvix led them to a booth in the back, where the quantum interference was strong enough to scramble most surveillance. As they sat, the architect's form continued to shift, sometimes appearing to occupy multiple positions simultaneously. The package I mentioned, Dalvix began without preamble, is not a physical object. It is information, proof that the Quantum Architecture Division has breached the consciousness containment protocols. Rena felt her blood run cold. The protocols were put in place after the Quantum Wars, forbidding any attempt to digitize or transfer organic consciousness. The potential for abuse was too great, the risk of creating immortal digital dictators too high. They're trying to upload minds, she asked, keeping her voice low. Not just trying. Dalvix's multiple phases seemed to shudder. They've succeeded. The ruling council. They're not the same beings who were elected. They're quantum copies, digital immortals maintaining power through illegal consciousness transfers. Core's voice carried rare emotion. If true, this explains the city's extreme technological prejudices. They're protecting their secret by ensuring no outside force can develop similar capabilities. Before Rena could respond, the bar's atmosphere changed. The random code displays synchronized for a moment, showing a warning pattern. Dalvix's form became more unstable. They found me, the architect hissed. The quantum trace. The air itself seemed to crystallize as four figures materialized in the bar. They wore the sleek armor of Novaris Quantum Enforcement Division, but something was wrong with their movements. Too perfect, too precise to be organic. Dalvix, one spoke in pure harmonics. Your breach of contract is concluded. Return to the division for decompilation. The architect's form began to fragment. The proof is in the quantum signature of their consciousness. Scanner readings. AAAG. Dalvix's body suddenly collapsed into quantum probability, their physical form dissolving into a shower of possibilities. Rena was already moving, flipping the table as energy beams lanced through the space where she'd been sitting. The bar erupted into chaos as patrons scrambled for exits. Core, analyze those enforcer signatures, she shouted, firing her plasma pistol. The shot passed through one enforcer as if they weren't fully present in this reality. Confirmed, their consciousness patterns are digital constructs operating quantum-engineered bodies. They exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Great, Rena ducked behind the bar as reality-warping energy carved through the air. How do you fight something that's not entirely real? She grabbed a bottle of illegal quantum-infused spirits from the shelf and hurled it at the nearest enforcer. The bottle passed through their phase-shifted form, but the liquid inside, charged with unstable quantum particles, didn't. The enforcer's perfect form began to glitch and distort. Their quantum state is vulnerable to chaotic elements. Core realized, just like how our ship's chaos confused their systems. Rena grinned fiercely. Time to get messy then. She grabbed more bottles, noting how the quantum-infused alcohol disrupted the enforcer's carefully maintained quantum states. Get the ship ready. We're about to have company. The Starweaver is still at 31% functionality, Core reminded her. Then she's going to have to operate at 200% of that 31%. Rena armed a jury-rigged quantum scrambler, another salvage toy she'd never expected to use. Because we've just stumbled onto something bigger than a simple delivery job. She triggered the scrambler, and reality rippled. The quantum enforcer's forms began to break down, their digital consciousness unable to maintain coherence in the chaotic quantum field. As Rena fought her way out of the disintegrating bar, she realized two things. First, she just made enemies of the most powerful beings in Novaris. Second, she might be the only one who could expose their illegal immortality scheme, if she could stay alive long enough to prove it. The gray market's neon lights flickered above her as she ran, casting multiple shadows that danced like quantum possibilities. Somewhere in the perfect city above, digital gods watched through countless sensors, preparing to eliminate the human who discovered their secret. The hunt was on, and this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about revealing a truth that could shatter the foundations of Novaris itself. The digital underground. The maintenance tunnels beneath Novaris' gray market were a maze of forgotten technology and broken dreams. Rena sprinted through them, her boots splashing through puddles of coolant that leaked from the city's ancient systems. The quantum scrambler had bought them time, but the digital enforcers would reconstitute themselves soon enough. Left at the next junction, Core guided through her neural implant. I'm detecting a concentrated mass of outlawed technology approximately 200 meters ahead. Outlawed tech. Rena vaulted over a fallen beam. Sounds like our kind of people. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that had once housed one of Novaris' backup power cores. Now it was something else entirely, a hidden sanctuary of forbidden innovation. Holographic displays lined the walls, showing real-time data streams from throughout the city. Quantum computers built from salvaged parts hummed with calculations that would make the architecture division apoplectic. And in the center of it all stood a figure that made Rena stop in her tracks. She was tall, her skin a shifting pattern of circuit-like tattoos that pulsed with internal light. Her eyes were completely black, reflecting data streams like living mirrors. "Welcome to the Nexus," the figure said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones similar to Dalvix's. "I am Vishera. And you, Rena Vale, have caused quite a disturbance in the quantum web." Rena kept her hand near her plasma pistol. "You know my name. Want to tell me how?" Vishera smiled, the expression rippling across her quantum-enhanced features. "We've been watching you since you entered Novarian space. Your ship's chaotic signature. It was beautiful. Like a randomly generated poem in a world of prescribed prose. We, Rena glanced around, noting shadows moving in the chamber's corners. The resistance. Vishera gestured, and the shadows resolved into people, humans, aliens, and even artificial beings, all working together at various stations. Those who see the truth about what Noveris has become under its immortal oligarchy. Speaking of truth, Core interjected through Rena's external speakers. We have approximately 18 minutes before the quantum enforcers reconstruct their consciousness patterns. Vishera's eyes flickered with new data streams. 23 minutes, actually. We've been feeding their recovery systems corrupted data. She moved to a central console. But that's not much time to explain how you fit into our plans. Your plans? Rena followed, watching as holographic models of Noveris quantum architecture appeared around them. I'm just here for a delivery job that went sideways. There was never any delivery job. Vishera's fingers danced through the holograms. Dalvix worked with us to bring you here. We needed someone with your unique approach to technology. Someone whose methods are so chaotic, they're practically quantum. The holograms shifted, revealing the structure of Noveris' consciousness transfer network. It was beautiful and horrifying. A vast web of quantum processors that could capture, copy, and store organic minds like data files. The council members aren't just digital copies, Vishera explained. They're running multiple instances of themselves throughout the city's systems. Each instance thinks it's the original, maintaining their grip on power through perfect coordination. That's why they're so afraid of outside influence, Rena realized. Any disruption to their quantum harmony could cause their instances to desynchronize, Vishera finished, leading to competing versions of the same consciousness, chaos in its purest form. Core's voice carried a note of understanding, and chaos is exactly what we excel at. Vishera nodded. Your ship, your methods, they're completely unpredictable by quantum computing standards. You're a ghost in their perfect machine. Before Rena could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. One of the resistance members called out, multiple quantum signatures converging. They're using the power conduits to track the scrambler's residual field. Well, Rena drew her plasma pistol. Guess we'll have to cut the exposition short. What exactly do you need from us? Vishera's tattoos pulsed faster. We need you to do what you do best. Create chaos. But this time, on a city-wide scale. She pressed a quantum data chip into Rena's hand. This contains a virus designed to destabilize their consciousness network, but we could never get close enough to implement it. Let me guess, Rena pocketed the chip. My ship's signature might just be messy enough to slip through their defenses. Precisely. Vishera's expression turned grave. But you'll have to reach the central spire, the heart of their network. No one's ever breached it and survived. The chamber's entrances began to seal as quantum energy signatures approached. Vishera gestured to a maintenance shaft. This will lead you back to your ship. We'll hold them off as long as we can. That's suicide, Rena protested. Vishera's smile was fierce. We're backed up on isolated quantum drives. Death is temporary. Freedom is forever. The resistance members moved into defensive positions, arming themselves with quantum disruption weapons. Vishera turned to Rena one last time. Show them that perfection isn't everything. Sometimes the most beautiful things are born from chaos. As Rena and Koori fled through the maintenance shaft, the sounds of quantum combat erupted behind them. Energy weapons discharge, reality warped, and the battle between digital gods and quantum rebels began. Core, Rena called as they ran. What are the odds of successfully infiltrating the most secure quantum facility in known space with a half-functioning ship and a virus we just got from people we barely know? Calculating. The AI responded. Taking into account our track record of impossible successes and spectacular failures, I'd say the odds are perfectly chaotic. Rena grinned despite the danger, just the way we like it. Above them, the perfect spires of Noveris reached toward the triple suns, their quantum-engineered surfaces hiding the digital immortals who watched through countless sensors. But beneath that perfection, in the shadows and forgotten places, chaos was spreading. And chaos, as any quantum physicist knows, has a way of changing everything it touches, breaking the code. The Starweaver hung in the shadows of Novaris' maintenance layer, its patchwork hull reflecting the dim glow of emergency lighting. Inside the cockpit, Rena studied the holographic display of the central spire, while Koori ran simulations of their approach vectors. 37 quantum detection grids, Core reported, 12 layers of reality phase barriers, and approximately 5,000 automated defense systems. Also, they've added our quantum signature to their priority threat database. Only 5,000. Rena's fingers traced the spire's structure in the hologram. They're underestimating us. Or perhaps they believe no one would be foolish enough to attempt this. The AI's tone carried a hint of concern. The virus V-Sharad gave us must be planted directly into the spire's quantum core. No remote transmission possible. Rena pulled out the quantum chip, watching its surface shimmer with encrypted data. Then we do this the hard way. How's our little project coming along? The hologram shifted to show the Starweaver's modified systems. After their escape from the Nexus, they'd spent hours incorporating salvaged quantum tech from the gray market into the ship's already chaotic configuration. The result was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. The quantum field inverter is stable, relatively speaking, Core said. By reversing the polarity of our ship's natural chaos, we should create a bubble of perfect order around us, and in a city built on quantum perfection. Perfect order becomes the anomaly they can't detect, Corey finished, like trying to spot a single organized pattern in a sea of randomness. Rena smiled, patting the ship's console. Sometimes the best way to hide is to stand perfectly still. Warning alerts flashed across the displays as the city's defense grid shifted above them. The Digital Council was adapting, implementing new search patterns based on their previous encounters. Time was running out. Initiating quantum field inversion, Core announced. The ship's systems hummed with an unnaturally steady rhythm, completely unlike their usual chaotic symphony. Field stability at 94% and holding. We are now the most orderly thing in Novaris, which makes us completely invisible to their quantum sensors. Rena took the controls, guiding the Starweaver out of the maintenance layer. They'll be looking for chaos, for disruption, not for something that matches their own perfect patterns. They rose through the city's levels, passing security checkpoints and patrol drones without triggering a single alarm. The central spire loomed before them, its crystalline surface refracting the light of the setting suns into mesmerizing patterns. Approaching the primary quantum barrier, Corey warned. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The barrier passed over them like a wave of liquid mathematics. For a moment, the cockpit filled with impossible geometries as reality itself tried to determine if they belonged. Then they were through, their perfect order accepted as part of the spire's quantum harmony. Landing bay identified, Rena guided the ship toward a maintenance dock near the spire's midsection. How long can we maintain this level of order? The inverter is already showing signs of strain. 15 minutes maximum before our natural chaos reasserts itself. 15 minutes to reach the core, plant the virus, and get out. Rena checked her plasma pistol and the quantum scrambler. No pressure. The Starweaver settled onto the dock with unprecedented smoothness, probably the first perfect landing in its existence. As Rena prepared to disembark, Corey spoke again. Rena, the chances of success are better than the chances of living under immortal digital dictators. She cut him off. Sometimes you have to roll the quantum dice. The maintenance dock connected to a service corridor that spiraled through the spire's interior. Rena moved quickly but precisely, matching her movements to the ordered patterns of the quantum field around her. Every step had to be perfect, every motion calculated. It was like dancing to a rhythm that violated her very nature. Core systems accessed through the next junction. Core guided through her neural implant. But I'm detecting multiple quantum signatures ahead. Active consciousnesses, not automated systems. Rena pressed against the wall as two figures emerged from a side passage. Quantum technicians, their forms flickering with multiple probability states. They passed without noticing her, their perfectly ordered perception unable to register anything that matched their own patterns so precisely. The core chamber was a cathedral of quantum engineering. Massive processors hung in zero-gravity fields, processing the consciousness streams of Novaris digital elite. The air itself seemed to pulse with calculated thought. 10 minutes until quantum inversion failure, Core warned. Rena moved to the central console, her movements still measured and precise despite the pressure mounting in her chest. Every instinct screamed to rush, to let chaos guide her as it always had. But that would mean instant detection. The virus chip slid into the console port with mathematical precision. Lines of code began flowing into the quantum network, disguised as routine maintenance protocols. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality hiccuped. The perfect patterns of the spire's quantum field began to fragment. Alarm systems remained silent, unable to recognize the danger through their own deteriorating consciousness streams. The digital gods were being infected with chaos, one quantum bit at a time. Inversion field failing. Core's warning came as Rena felt her own movements becoming less precise. Their natural chaos was bleeding through. The first real alarms began to sound as she sprinted back toward the ship. Behind her, the ordered reality of the spire was dissolving into beautiful chaos. The quantum signatures of the council members began to desynchronize, their multiple instances losing their perfect harmony. Rena reached the Starweaver just as their quantum disguise failed completely. The ship's systems returned to their natural state with a vengeance, every jury-rigged component singing its own discordant note in the quantum symphony. The virus is spreading exponentially, Core reported as they launched. Quantum consciousness streams are fragmenting throughout the city. The Council's instances are arguing with themselves. Through the view screen, Rena watched as Novaris' perfect facade began to crack. Quantum probability fields collapsed and reformed in new patterns. The digital gods were falling, their perfect order consumed by the very chaos they had sought to eliminate. Think we made our point about the value of imperfection? Rena asked, guiding their ship through the disintegrating quantum barriers. That depends, Core replied. On which instance of the council members you ask. They seem to have developed quite a variety of opinions on the matter. As they fled the city, the triple suns set behind them, casting long shadows through the quantum disruption. Novaris would survive, but it would never be the same. Perfect order had given way to beautiful chaos, and somewhere in the digital underground, Vishera and her resistance were preparing to build something new from the fragments of the old regime. So, Core asked as they plotted a course away from the city, was this chaos-inducing revolution part of the original delivery job, or should we charge extra? Rena laughed, patting the ship's console affectionately. Let's just call it a bonus feature. After all, sometimes the best deliveries are the ones you never expected to make. Revolution in Chrome. The quantum storm that engulfed Novaris painted the sky in impossible colors. Fractals of probability cascaded down the city's perfect spires as the virus continued its work, unraveling centuries of digital control. The Starweaver hung at a safe distance, its sensors drinking in the spectacular chaos they had helped create. Multiple quantum consciousness signatures detected, Core reported. The council members' instances are evolving. Each copy is developing independently, creating new thought patterns, new personalities. Rena watched the displays, noting how the city's rigid grid systems were transforming into more organic patterns. They wanted immortality through perfect replication. Instead, they got evolution through chaos. Incoming transmission, Core announced. It's Vishera. The resistance leader's hologram appeared on the bridge, her circuit tattoos pulsing with newfound energy. The digital underground has seized control of the lower quantum networks. The Council's perfect synchronization is shattered beyond repair. And the citizens? Rena asked, thinking of the millions who had lived under the digital oligarchy's rule. Awakening to a new reality. Vishera's smile was fierce. When perfection fails, adaptation begins. Already, new quantum democracy protocols are emerging from the chaos. Each district is developing its own governance patterns, linked but not controlled by the central networks. A warning alert flashed across the displays. Multiple ships launching from the outer districts, Core reported. Quantum signatures suggest enforcement vessels. But these weren't the perfect, synchronized ships they had faced before. These moved with individual purpose, their quantum fields showing signs of the same evolution affecting the rest of the city. The enforcers have broken free from central control, Vishera explained. Some remain loyal to various council instances. Others have joined our cause. And some, she paused, watching the ships approach, some are simply trying to understand their new freedom. A new voice cut through their communications, Commander Vexlor, but different from their previous encounter. Human vessel Starweaver, this was Enforcement Command. Your actions have introduced an unprecedented variable into our quantum society. That's one way of putting it, Rena muttered. Our perfect order has been disrupted, Vexlor continued. Our unified purpose has fragmented into countless individual perspectives. We are becoming something new. The enforcement vessels surrounded the Starweaver, but their weapon systems remained dormant. Through the view screen, Rena could see how their previously identical quantum signatures were now uniquely distinct. The city requires guidance during this transition, Vishera said. Not control, guidance. Your ship, your crew. You understand how to navigate chaos while maintaining purpose. We need that knowledge. Rena leaned back in her pilot's seat, considering. You're asking the human with a salvaged ship to help guide an advanced quantum civilization. I'm asking someone who proved that imperfection can be stronger than perfection, Vishera corrected. The age of digital gods is over. Now we need pioneers who can help us explore the quantum wilderness we've become. Core's voice carried an unusual note of excitement. The mathematical possibilities are fascinating. A quantum society embracing controlled chaos rather than rigid order. Could be beautiful, Rena finished, watching the city's transformation continue below. Or it could be a complete disaster, just like everything else we do, Core added. Rena smiled, her hands moving across the Starweaver's worn controls. Vishera, tell your people to clear a landing zone. If we're going to help build something new out of this chaos, we might as well do it properly. The ship descended toward Novarus once more, but this time there were no perfect barriers to breach, no synchronized defenses to evade. Instead, they flew through quantum probability fields that shifted like aurora, each distortion representing a new possibility, a new path forward. The digital gods had sought immortality through perfect replication, creating a society as rigid as their quantum algorithms. But in the end, it was chaos, human chaos, that showed them a greater truth. True immortality comes not from perfect preservation, but from endless evolution. As the Starweaver settled onto a landing pad in the transformed city, Rena thought about the unlikely series of events that had brought them here. A simple delivery job had turned into a revolution, all because a human ship was too imperfect to be detected by perfect systems. You know, Core said as they prepared to disembark. According to my calculations, the probability of all this succeeding was effectively zero. That's the beauty of chaos, Rena replied, watching quantum patterns dance across the city's awakening surface. It doesn't care about probabilities. Above them, the triple suns of Novarus set once again, but this time their light refracted through a city transformed. Perfect chrome had given way to living quantum art, rigid order had evolved into dynamic harmony, and at the heart of it all was a truth as old as humanity itself. Sometimes the most broken tools create the most beautiful changes. The digital revolution was over. The quantum evolution was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast network of possibilities that Novarus had become, the ghost of perfection smiled at the beauty of imperfection. Core, Rena said as they stepped out into their new future, "Mark this delivery job as completed." With a bonus for exceeding expectations. Definitely with a bonus. After all, she looked up at the quantum aurora swirling above the city. Chaos always pays dividends.